have stories. Every single one of us. From the highest of the high to the lowest of the low, we all have stories. Exploring the world for the greatest stories of all time.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show.
The Aron O'Dowd Show. Our soul is the screen upon which we project our dreams. What's your story?
Hello and welcome. Another time of the day where the Aron O'Dowd's going to sit down and interview an amazing guest. I wonder who it is. She is a doctor. She lost an X amount of pounds, which we're going to understand and learn. And I discovered her on an event a year ago where she was her and I were learning how to pitch and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, this is an interesting woman and I got to have her on. So hello, welcome to the show, Marilyn. How are you doing today?
Hey, Aron, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Marilyn, where are you from?
Well, I was originally from New England area in Connecticut, and I lived in Georgia, which is also on Connecticut is northeast United States, and I lived in the southeast United States, and that's where I am now.
Why did you want to become a doctor?
I am not a doctor, Aron. I'm a nurse.
Oh, darn it.
But that's nice of you to think of that. But yeah, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 38 years, 37 years, something like that, some crazy number.
Wow, darn it. Nurse and doctor, they're similar, but I apologize, but it is what it is, Why the nurse?
That's funny that you should ask. It's a funny story. Can I tell a funny story about why I became a nurse?
Go ahead.
Okay, here goes. I was in my early 20s, and I was working at a fast food restaurant and a gas station. Early 20s. I had a 3-year-old, and I think I was pregnant at the time. And my current husband was having seizures regularly. And my husband and I, at the time, didn't have health insurance. And so we would, when he had seizures, we would call up 911, which is emergency here in the US, and we would get transported to the county hospital, and we would sit in the emergency room for hours, just looking and waiting and waiting and looking. And while I was there, I noticed the nurses, because the nurses were powerful and they were in charge of everything. And nothing happened until they said so. And I thought that was really cool. And I thought to myself, I wonder what it would be like to be a nurse. Because you see, my husband and I, we had a band. He had bright red hair and he played the guitar and he taught me how to play the bass. And the name of the band was Red, Wife, and Blues. And we were going places, man. We were going to be the stars of the world. We were going to go everywhere and travel. And, if I were a nurse, then I could travel around and support the band. Wherever I went, there would be jobs. So yeah, I could be a nurse. I could do it for the band, man. So that's how I kind of got into deciding that I might want to be a nurse. For the band, man.
What made you do the band, man?
Well, we just were in our early 20s. I forgive anybody for anything they do in their 20s, because it's just a crazy time of life and a crazy brain function. I don't know. There was just some crazy stuff I did. And so there isn't anything that anybody else could do that I haven't either thought of or done myself in my 20s. So I just wait for everybody to turn 30 before I try to even put some sense and to offer them any sensible suggestions or solutions, because 20s are just a crazy time. Do you remember your 20s?
I sure do, but I have this image, you lead guitar in a band, that's just crazy.
I was the bass player. I played the bass. He played the lead. It was fun. I love music. I'm grateful for that opportunity.
What do you love about music?
What do I know about it?
What do you love and know?
Love. It's always been in our family. And when I was young, my mother made it a priority for us to have a piano in the house. We had a lot of kids and we didn't have a lot of money, but she took all of us. I can remember, I'm the oldest, so I can remember going to this like warehouse, and she brought us into this warehouse. All the kids were screaming and climbing all over things, and way in the back there was this old upright piano, and I don't know where she got the pennies to buy this, but she somehow talked the guy into giving it to her, and we brought it home. And that piano, we banged on that piano for years. And she had a friend who taught us how to play. And my mother was very musically inclined. She wrote music, she played the guitar, she led music groups, and we all sang. And so it was just something that was embedded in my genes and included in my upbringing. And I just love music, and I still do.
So are you a blues girl, rock and roll, hip hop? What's your flavor of music?
I like them all, Aaron. I like the blues. The blues are fun to play. To jam on the blues is fun because you can just get together with instruments and everybody knows what to do. I like hip hop. I know more about rap than your average old white lady. And I like jazz. I like classical. I played the French horn through school and high school. So all music is game for me. When I'm exercising, I go for the pop because it's got the beat. They specifically arrange pop music so that it's got a certain rhythm and rate of rhythm, and it helps with working out. So it just depends on the time and the place.
So you're in the band, you have this idea that you want to be a nurse. Tell us where it went from there.
Okay, I'll tell you about why it turned into nursing. So I had this idea that I wanted to be a nurse, but I didn't know how to go about it. But I mentioned it to this guy that I worked with, and I said, I think I might want to look into being a nurse. And I didn't have a car, but I walked to work at the Jack in the Box through the campus of Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona at the time. That's where we were living. And I just longed to be a part of that environment. I wanted to go to school so bad, and I thought it was just so cool. And I got to work, and I told this friend about how I thought it would be cool to be a nurse. And he said, oh, well, you should just go to Arizona State. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. And the next day he came into work with an application to Arizona State University and an application for financial aid. And I filled them both out. And I went home and I told my husband, and he said, you can't go there. You have to blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, they'll give me a Pell Grant and they'll give me a bunch of money. He said, okay, you can go. And so that's how I ended up going to Arizona State for 4.5 years to get my nursing degree.
And when you graduated, were you excited to be a nurse?
I was frightened to be a nurse. I don't know about you, but nursing is hard and scary, and people's lives are in your hands. And there's so much to know and so much to remember. Nursing school itself is really, really stressful and hard for a good reason, because we're going to be doing things that could save or hurt people. So it took me probably 6 months of working as a nurse, as a new nurse, before I was not driving to work with nausea and abdominal pain and shaking. It was really hard. So I was grateful for it, but I always longed to have some time under my belt so that I would feel more experienced and more confident. But I don't think that's unusual. I think that nursing is a very complex, highly responsible position to be in. And it takes a lot of expertise and practice and mentoring to get to be a good nurse.
Wow.
Which I'm a great nurse.
I bet you are. What do you like about nursing?
I like the diversity. You can be a nurse in just about any situation, even if you're not even in a healthcare situation. You can always act and be and support as a nurse. Nursing is a respected position. I worked with a bunch of nurses from Ireland at one time. I remember they have a little bit different system there, but they have a lot of autonomy in Ireland. Nursing has autonomy as well in the fact that you have a great deal of work to do and a great responsibility to make decisions about what's going on with people's health, to support them moving toward their health goals. Most of the time in the hospital, that means to go home. That's your main goal. But to bring people back to baseline and guide them with interventions and education and support and information is really a very rewarding feeling. It's very nurses are present at very, very difficult times of people's lives, very vulnerable times, times when family members are dying or when you yourself are not well or dying. And it's a time that I find, or during birth, nurses are present for births and during the birth process. So we are present in people's lives during really critical, special, amazing moments. And we can be the angels that people need at that time.
How does it feel to
You muffled for a second there, Aaron. I'm sorry, I didn't get that question. How do I feel? What?
That's okay. How does it feel to give service and support to people?
I was born to be a caretaker. I was born with a clipboard in my hand. I'm the oldest of 9. And so I've always been in charge and I've always been taking care of people. So I believe that was my mission, and nursing was just the perfect puzzle piece fit for me to just climb into and take care of others. I enjoy it. I'm naturally good at it, and it brings me joy to help others and to be there for them in times of need.
And how does Marilyn look after herself? Because nursing is probably a stressful, energetic, draining from giving people what they need and what they do to be able to get the service from coming in, coming out.
You're right, it is. When I was a nurse, often, well, for a great deal of time, I worked weekends only. And they have these special shifts in nursing in many places where you can work 12-hour shifts on Saturdays and Sundays, and then you have the 5 days off. And that really supported me and supporting my family to have that time off and then to just work only those 2 days because, as you noted, it takes everything out of a nurse to do a good nursing job. There's no way around not being exhausted, depleted, emotionally drained, and absolutely stressed out and frazzled at times to be a nurse. So one way that I managed all of that was to work less hours, and they give you premium pay for doing that. So it works out kind of evenly almost. But it took me until I was in my 40s to really start taking care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually the way that helped me to become as well as I am now.
What was that moment where you had to realize, oh, I need to look after myself?
Well, I don't know if you knew this about me, Aaron, but I weighed 300 pounds when I was around 40. And I had high blood pressure, and I was on high cholesterol medication and high blood pressure medication. I also had, I was not well. I was borderline diabetic and not eating well, not taking care of myself. And a friend of mine was on a reality show, And in this reality show, she was stuck in this room for like 3 months. They had to stay there, and they exercised every day. And when she finally got out of the reality show, she wanted to continue exercising, and she invited me. And that was the final pivotal moment that began my health and wellness journey, which continues to this day and will continue until I leave, because health and wellness is not something that has an end point. It's a continuing journey. So that's where it began. Was when I was about 42, I began walking and eating differently with my friend.
Tell us about how you got from 300 pounds to the weight you are now.
Well, I did it slowly. I didn't do it. I literally wrote a book about it. I wrote a book called Groundwork Before Pound Work. And it's the story of how I gradually, gently changed my habits, because I had people who are overweight work all their lives, and I had worked all my life to try and lose weight, and I was not very good at it. And even if I was successful, I always gained back more than I had lost. It was very frustrating, and I thought that I was going to be obese all my life. So when I began with my friend, I began by taking very tiny steps and accomplishing things that I knew I could accomplish, and then celebrating them when I was done. I didn't just try to lose weight. I tried to do things that I could recognize as accomplishments. And then when I did do those things, then I would celebrate them and document them and pay attention to the things that I was doing right. For instance, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, going for a walk during my lunch break at work, eating a salad instead of whatever I was eating, a sandwich for a certain meal. And I would try to extend my exercise timing, and I would increase my amount of, I would decrease my sugar and increase my fruit intake instead. I would just begin very slowly to do tiny little things to change the way that I was living, change the way that I was eating. But more importantly, I paid attention to them. I paid attention to every success, and I celebrated it, not with food. I celebrated it by writing in my journal and buying new clothes that fit me better, and recognizing and believing in myself more and more slowly over time. So it took a really long time for me to lose. It's now, I guess I've lost 140 pounds total. But it took a really long time to begin to lose weight. I started increasing my exercise eventually, but it was all in time. So I would say years. It took me years to lose weight, because losing weight was not the goal. The goal was to get healthy, and the side effect was weight loss.
Wow, it just shows you when you do it, it's amazing. You must have felt amazing.
I feel amazing every day. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Just like you. That's what I like about you, Aron. You have a really positive, awesome outlook on life. Yabba dabba do.
Thanks. Thanks. When was that moment in your life you realized, I'm going to pack in nursing and do something different?
It wasn't really a moment. It's funny. We all have, some people have energy that goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And my energy kind of just rolls in the middle. I'm an even keel kind of person. So it wasn't like I snapped my fingers and it was done, but here's the way it went. My parents were gradually becoming less and less independent in their own little home. And I worked really hard to keep them independent in their home by supporting them with social service. And I bought them food so that they didn't have to cook meals. My sister and I went over there regularly and did house cleaning. I began to support my mom, who had Parkinson's, with I had to help her take showers, and we did their laundry, we cleaned their house. We did whatever we could do to keep them in their house independently. And at that time, I had to find a part-time job, and in order to be able to support them. And so I changed to a different type of nursing job. I was answering the phone on a call center for a while, being a nurse advisor. And so what happened finally is my father, who was the only one who could care for my mother if everybody wasn't there, he fell and he ended up in the hospital for 2 or 3 months. And so we moved both of my parents into my home with me. And I cared for both of them for the next 5 years in my home as they were no longer able to be independent at all. And so when that happened, I had to quit my job. I tried to do it with supplemental support and people coming in and helping, but it was not reliable. It was difficult to arrange, and my parents were very heavy to take care of. And so I ended up just leaving my job with the intention of going back, but I had to quit. And then by the time my father passed first, and then my mom passed in 2020, and there's a little story about that, but it coincided exactly with the time of COVID just kind of blowing up here in the United States, and all the crazy restrictions happening. So what happened was, real quick story, my mom was in hospice and she got really bad, and we put her into inpatient hospice for the last week of her life. And during that time was when the boom came down, and they decided from the federal government that there would be no visitors at all in any hospital situations. And so I had to leave my mother's dying bedside in hospice and not be allowed to be with her in her last days when I had taken care of her for 15 years. And it was very, very difficult and hard for me. But they did let me come back for the last few hours, and I was there for her when she passed. But it was a very tragic time. And although I did do some more work in healthcare, I did some trainings online, I never stepped foot back into the clinical arena after that. It was COVID for nurses, physicians, for anyone who worked in the hospitals. COVID was traumatic. It was horrifying. It was like a war zone, and there were a lot of people who suffered PTSD and other major illnesses just from being present in that environment. So I certainly wasn't going to go back and work in that, and I didn't. And I've been outside of the clinical field and not in a hospital environment since then.
Cool. So you're now the journalist on the field, exploring and understanding the world of nursing in a completely different way.
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, once a nurse, always a nurse. I don't know if you know any nurses, but we'll be nurses until we die. I mean, people will always come to us and ask us questions and advice. It's just the nature of the profession. But yeah, I've moved on to working in, not out of healthcare. I do enjoy holistic health and personally healthy health, personal health. But yeah, I'm not working in the healthcare system. I'm a little bit critical of the healthcare system.
I guess the clipboard and services, your mission that you're here to do, you're probably transitioning that into other areas, right?
Well, the plan is to continue to write. I've written my second book this year, we just published, and also to be a speaker. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy interviewing people, and I enjoy being a part of spreading holistic information about how to be healthy, what we can do to empower ourselves to be healthy individuals and to live our lives the best we can.
And how do you do that?
How do I do that? All of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so you and I spent some time together doing that this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because at the beginning of the year, I decided that it was time. And the next step in my health journey was going to be to start lifting again. I hadn't lifted in a while. I wanted to lift weights again. And so I joined an online workout group, and you were in it. You are something else. I loved working out with you
So
because
did I.
you are such a little monster who solves problems. It didn't matter what was in your way. You were always pushing past it. And so that's where my lifting began this year. I enjoyed that class. We met online and worked out together. And that was the coolest. I love working out. I am plant-based, completely plant-based. And I also am as much organic as I possibly can. I try never to eat processed foods at all. I don't eat any dairy, and I just working my way toward as much holistic wellness as I can. I have a garden. I eat out of that as much as I possibly can, and I hope to eventually have a bigger garden and more stuff that I pull out of it and save for the rest of the year and can and store and dry. I have a bunch of really great habanero peppers that I grew this year that I put in my dehydrator and make into flakes. Maybe I'll give it away for Christmas. I have tons of it. Do you know what habanero peppers are, Aaron?
I sure do. They're delicious.
Mm-hmm. I bet you're a hot pepper guy, aren't you?
Oh yeah, hot and spicy.
makes your bald head turn red, doesn't it?
And where did the medical cannabis come? Did that come later, or was it kind of this year, or when?
All right, so let me tell you the story about how I learned about medical cannabis. I was co-hosting a radio show. For 2.5 years, we did a 2-hour, once a week live radio show, and I co-hosted and I executive produced it, which meant I had the spreadsheet and the clipboard, and I kept track of all the minutes and the times and the drops and the commercials and everything. I made sure it all happened right. And we had this person, we had lots of people on, but one day we had this person on who was a physician, and he was a medical cannabis advocate. And I was still a nurse working in a hospital, and I was a little bit snooty about everything. And I thought to myself, well, if I was supposed to know about this cannabis stuff, I would have had like an in-service or a workshop or something would have been taught to me. So I don't know what he's talking about, but we'll interview him. And the physician spoke to us about how he had his own practice, and he was a palliative care physician, someone who took care of people at the end of life or people who had chronic pain or chronic issues over long periods of time. He took care of them. He had a beautiful heart, kind, wonderful person, still a dear friend of mine. And he said that, and he was very athletic, and one day he was playing basketball, and he went head first into the chest of another basketball player. And he felt and heard something, but he wasn't sure what it was. He had literally fractured his neck. He had broken his neck doing that. So 2 surgeries, and 2 years later, this physician who had this booming practice had now become one of his own patients. He was not addicted, but dependent on opioids. He was managing all of the side effects of chronic pain and the side effects of opioid use for pain. He was extremely depressed. He couldn't make it to work regularly. He was at high risk for he was about to lose his business. He was depressed, and he actually had considered suicide until he found medical cannabis. And medical cannabis provided for him not only pain relief, but healing of the chronic inflammation and the neuropathy and all of the severe side effects that he was having from this terrible surgery and injury that he had had, and all the chronic pills and medications he was taking. And he spoke to me and all of us about this system that I had never heard of. It was called the endocannabinoid system. And this endocannabinoid system belongs and lives in all of us. It's been there since we were humans. It's in all mammals. And it's a system of receptors and little molecules that we make inside ourselves called endocannabinoids, and also the enzymes that break it down. And he spoke in words that told me, in my own clinical understanding, that this was something real. And his experience told me that this was something I had to find out more about. And that's where I began my journey to learn about cannabis and how it works as a medicine in our bodies and works with our endocannabinoid system. That was 2018. I've been studying it ever since. I love it.
Her journey brought her to the dark side of medicine. Oh no.
It is a very, you could say it was dark because there's an incredibly horrible amount of stigma associated with cannabis, especially in the US. Do you know why?
No, why?
Do you want to know? I mean, is it okay if I explain why this is
go ahead.
Okay. I'm interested in the stigma part of it. I want to change the stigma. So that's why I've studied it. Back in the early 1900s, actually in the 1800s, cannabis was on our United States pharmacopoeia. It was prescribed. It was one of the most prescribed medications. You could buy it over the counter in all kinds of creams and tinctures, and you can also have it prescribed to you. It was used for pain and migraines and seizures, and it was used for perimenopause and people with dysmenorrhea, all kinds of reasons to use cannabis, prescribed for over 100 years. In the early 1900s, though, there were a few things that happened in the world. First of all, there was an opioid epidemic, and everybody, I think like a quarter of China was addicted to opium. And everybody was afraid of opium. It was addictive and it was scary, and there was a lot of bad fear around it. And the United States and the rest of the world was looking for answers to that. The second thing that was going on in the early 1900s was in Mexico, there was a civil war. And in this civil war, it ended about 1920, and there was a huge influx from Mexico into the United States of immigrants. And these were not just regular people, these were core immigrants. These were what Mexico considered the lower class. And so did the upper echelon of the United States. So we had opioid epidemic worldwide and a massive influx of Mexican immigrants. And the third thing that was going on was from 1920 to 1933, alcohol was illegal in the United States. It was alcohol prohibition. And there was this huge government agency that was in charge of enforcing this alcohol prohibition. And they were coming down on people and bashing stills, and they were putting people in prison, and all about alcohol for like 13 years. But then alcohol became legalized in 1933 again, so prohibition ended. So those three incidences in the world are the beginning of the stigma of cannabis, and this is why. The man who was in charge of that gigantic federal bureau was Harry Anslinger. And Harry Anslinger suddenly in 1933 had this gigantic group of thugs and a federally funded program and nothing for them to do because alcohol was no longer illegal. he led a propaganda against the what he called marijuana. And the reason he called it marijuana is because he didn't like those Mexican immigrants and he targeted them. They came into the country and they smoked cannabis and they brought cannabis with them, but they didn't call it cannabis. They called it marijuana. It was a beautiful word, but that's what they called it. We didn't know what marijuana was. And even the American Medical Association didn't know what marijuana was. So everybody was like, oh, yes, marijuana is terrible. Oh, terrible, terrible. And he had a propaganda. He had flyers and newspapers and magazines. And they had a movie called Reefer Madness. And he claimed he was a very admittedly racist man. He didn't like black people either. And so he claimed that this marijuana was making white women fall at the feet of black males, and these jazz singers were just awful, and they were going to take our children, and people were jumping off buildings, and people were just going crazy over this marijuana. And so everybody was like, yeah, marijuana, we hate it. And then the fear of the opioid crisis was brought into it too. So these three things together created this opportunity for Harry Anslinger to go to Congress and ask for marijuana to be made illegal. And he didn't exactly get it illegalized. What he did was he got a tax on it that was so prohibitive that it couldn't be used anymore. So marijuana and cannabis were the same thing. And the American Medical Association found out too late and went to Congress and said, please, no, don't take this medicine from us. We use it all the time. But it was a little too late, and the propaganda and the fear and the prejudice and the racism all worked together to create this this propagandized bubble of lies that demonized cannabis. And that's how the stigma began. It was found in 1969 that this tax that had been placed on cannabis was actually, it was taken to the Supreme Court here in the United States, and it was found to be illegal. And it was removed. But in 1970, the president at the time was Richard Nixon, and he made it law that cannabis was illegal by starting what they call the schedule. He created the Controlled Scheduling Act, and that made cannabis absolutely illegal. As bad as it made it a Schedule I drug, which means it had no medical value and it was high possibility and risk for addiction. And so that's why, still to this day, cannabis is federally illegal in the United States, according to this Controlled Substance Act from 1970.
Wow, that's shocking, mad, and crazy all at the same time. But it makes sense why it is today.
Yeah, I kind of got into it because I believe that this medicine is a part of a holistic way of living. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to cure everything, but it sure can support and help people if they need it or want it to be a part of their healing, a part of their empowerment to heal themselves.
How does it help you?
I'm pretty healthy. So it works with the endocannabinoid system, and I have a very healthy endocannabinoid system. My system, I feed it regularly with omega-3s and omega-6s and all the plant-based eating that I do, and my exercise, and I get enough sleep. So honestly, I don't medicinally use cannabis very often. Sometimes I'll use it for sleep if I need to relax or something. But generally speaking, I'm not a medical cannabis user. But I do believe that most people, I'll say probably 90% or more of people who use cannabis at all are not using it for recreation. people use cannabis to self-heal and to self-medicate. It works in the system that touches so many different areas of our body. It helps our nervous system to calm. It relieves pain. It supports our digestive system. It is very, very well noted to support our immune system and to reverse autoimmune processes, or be a part of that. Again, and I say this is not a silver bullet. Cannabis is not like take cannabis and you'll be healed. It's not like that at all. And the chronic diseases that we're dying from, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, kidney disease, there's others, but those took a long time to get it took a long time to get that sick. It's not like, you were well yesterday and now today you have a heart attack. It's a chronic, ongoing process to get ill. So it's got to be an ongoing process to get well. And I believe in my heart that cannabis can be a part of that holistic journey to wellness.
Wow. Is there any way or how you're studying it, you're understanding it, but yet it's the way it is? Do you feel it'll eventually get the way Omega?
Eventually, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of it. Eventually what?
Eventually become legal in the future?
There is momentum in the direction of legalization, and I know you don't live in the United States, but here in the United States, though it is federally illegal, it's a little complex, but I'll try to say it really simply. In 2018, the federal government decided that the plant was illegal, but that you could grow the plant as long as it had less than 0.3% of the intoxicating cannabinoid in it, which is THC. Now there's many cannabinoids, and those are little tiny chemicals that live in the plant. The two most famous ones are THC, which is the intoxicating one that gets people high. And then there is cannabidiol and cannabigerol and CBG, CBT. There's over 100 of them. And we have not yet been able to study all of them, but the ones that are not intoxicating can be extracted from the plants that are grown with low THC, less than 0.3% intoxicating THC. So that plant can be grown in the United States. Even though it's the same plant, it just has less of that one intoxicating substance. So cannabis is grown in the United States, and there are other cannabinoids within it that are extracted and used medicinally, and then now there's also a movement to reschedule. Remember, I said the schedule put it at a Schedule 1, which meant it was completely illegal. It was a absolute illegal substance, and it was high addiction and and no medical value. There is a process in place that has been going on, and it looks like it may move forward, and we hope it does, to change it from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, which would allow it to be legally maybe prescribed, but at the very least, it would be allowing it to be studied. And that's what we need, is more studies, more research to validate and show not only that how valuable this plant medicine is in our lives, but also to find out more about how we can use it and be more exact in its use for medicinal value. It's a plant. It's hard to say take one plant twice a day. You don't do it that way. You have to kind of extract it and figure out what the doses are that are best, and the combination of doses as well. So hopefully there is a trend toward now see, Europe and Canada are different. In Canada, cannabis is a medicine already, and it's being prescribed by physicians. Same thing in Germany and England and Ireland. I'm not sure about Ireland actually, but definitely in Israel and many countries. Australia, the continent of Australia, they all have legalized the medical aspect of cannabis and prescribed it by physicians, but not yet here in the U.S. We are still on the way, hopefully.
What has you curious to go into the depth of knowledge you're doing to understand this plant?
It just drew me in, Aaron. It was just so helpful to so many people. I joined a group of nurses, the Cannabis Nurses Network, and they had story after story. I'd say most of the nurses in the Cannabis Nurses Network were cannabis advocates because it healed them, because they had a personal experience with the plant. When they were ill, they were able to be functional and well again, using this plant on their wellness journey. And so I was just so fascinated as well by the history and the fact that the stigma against it was so bad for contrived and reasons of contrived reasons with political motives and racist motives. I think that it inspired me because it gave me insight into how things can get so misconstrued. Cannabis is such a broad-based topic, and so my favorite parts of it are history, how we got here, and the journey to wellness.
I guess wellness is one of the topics we look at towards hours days a week.
You were kind of mumbly for that one, but you smiled afterwards, so I guess it's okay. Whatever you said.
I know that I was just saying that you probably dine out in wellness 24/7, 7 days a week, and it's your favorite topic to talk about at dinner, you know?
I try not to bore people with it, but honestly, Aaron, aren't all of us on a wellness journey? Don't we all want to be our very best, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? I mean, there's so many ways. The reason why we want things, the reasons that we have desires, is because we believe that we'll be happier in the having of them. And so I seek wellness because I know it makes me happy. I want to live to be 120 plus. I'm going to go like this until I drop. That's my plan. I bet you're going to do that too. You're an athlete.
I might outlive you. You never know, you know? You know, you and I learned about speaking in groups together and pitching and all that, but what is your mission that you want to achieve on this planet?
On the planet, huh?
Yeah, let's go big.
My planetary mission is to be my best self and to use my experiences in life as gifts of understanding the challenges of others and to support them and help them through whatever they're going through, because I understand. I was in an abusive marriage. I lost a lot of weight. I took care of my parents. And those three things are some of the things that I've journeyed through. And as a result of that, I have empathy for others in these kinds of situations. I have empathy for people who are ill. I have empathy for people who are caring for their loved ones and giving up their lives and their careers in order to care for elderly parents. And I have empathy for people who are in abusive situations and what it takes to get out and why they stay. And so I have empathy for people who are come from loving large families with very little money. So everything that I've been through is an important part of who I am, and my experiences are the values that I want to bring to the world in any way possible.
Where did that empathy come from?
From experience, right? I mean, isn't that what empathy is? Empathy is not like sympathy. Sympathy is when you are outside someone's feelings, but empathy is when you are connected to them because you felt that way. Now, I don't have empathy for, well, actually, I have empathy for running a half marathon, but I don't have empathy for doing a triathlon or any of that crazy stuff that you do. I'm not the type to do that. So you're someone who can coach and support and encourage someone to get through that kind of a challenge, especially the way that you do things with having sight disability. You're just a remarkable, amazing person. And people are like, well, if he can do it, I guess I can. So I think that that's kind of what it means to me, is that empathy is that I not only understand, but I feel it with you. I'm connected to you on that.
No, I totally agree. And what are the gifts you have and superpower?
My superpower. I I'm shy about my superpowers. I'm an organizer. I have a hawkeye view of everything. I can take chaos and project manage it into little doable things. That's why I was the one who executive produced the radio show, because I could take all the little spots and make them all work in a certain way. So that's one of my superpowers. I have an ability to love. I am non-judgmental, just like I'll never judge anyone in their 20s, no matter what they do. Have at it. I'll see you when you're 30. And I want to use my skills of music and speaking and writing. I believe I'm a writer. I've written 2 books. I've published 2 books so far. I've written music and songs, and so I believe those are some of my superpowers as well.
Why are you so shy about them?
Maybe that's a deep thought, Aaron. I don't know how to answer that one, but awareness is the first step towards solving any problem, and I am aware of it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work through my shyness. Not shyness, just what is it? It's easy to look at others. It's easy to see people, and we can look straight into the sun, but the hardest thing is to look in the mirror.
Oh, come on, Marilyn, you're beautiful. Like, you should be able to look in the mirror, you know?
I do. I practice. I talk to myself in the mirror all the time. Thank you for that, Aaron.
And what inspires you to do what you do?
I can't help it. I think that we have to create or we'll die. So I'm just going to keep on going. I just have ideas, and I want to implement, and I want to help, and I want to support. I want to make a difference. I want to be in the sunshine. I want to do the things that I'm supposed to do while I'm here, and just keep on thinking of more things to do. I'm always busy. I'm too busy, and I love it. So I just believe that creating, because literally speaking, the things that we create were thoughts, and turning thoughts into things. Wow, how cool is that? It's like personal manifestation. I want to do that. That's exciting to me, to have ideas and to make them happen and make them turn into something that you can hold in your hand, or you can see on the road, or you can work with people or make a difference. I want to do things like that.
Is that something of a legacy you want to leave behind?
Sure. Yeah, I want to leave a legacy. What's your legacy, Aaron? What are you going to leave behind?
I'm doing it right now. Leaving
That's
all
right,
these.
you are.
Oh, yeah. And what about you?
I like that about you. I think you're I don't want to cuss, but I think you're a really remarkable badass. And I admire and appreciate all the things you do. You inspire and motivate me to keep going. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. We inspire one another in different ways. You inspire me by your social media posts. This is type fast, and boom, boom, boom.
I hope so.
If you could give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Be easy on yourself. It's okay. Do the best you can with what you have. And whatever you do is enough. It's okay.
That must have been hard to digest if the older self was telling the younger self, just be easy, man. Ride the waves.
Yeah, there was some crazy stuff going on in my life. That's why I appreciate people wherever they are, because I know I've done some crazy stuff. I've had some crazy situations. I've done some stuff that people would not expect.
Ooh, and they're probably all designed rightly perfect to get Marilyn where she is right now,
I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane.
No way. You gotta tell us about that.
All right, you have a minute or two for a quick story about it?
Go ahead.
All right, my friend wanted to get a discount to get, so she talked all of us into going so we could get a group discount. We went and signed away our lives and our ability to sue anybody, and suited up, and we were tandem. So there was somebody behind me strapped to me, and I was beginning to chicken out because I'm afraid of heights. And so they decided that I would go up in the first plane. It was one of those planes, and there wasn't even a door. It was just an open space. And so we went up the appropriate height, and me and this guy who was strapped to me climbed over to the edge a little bit, and I looked out over into the wild blue yonder, and I said to him, "I don't think I want," and he jumped. And I went for a while, and then I realized, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I'll go for it. And then the chute opened, and everyone says this is the nicest part of it because you're just gently floating to the ground, and it's really quiet and serene and beautiful. But not for me. I was feeling sick. So I told the guy who was strapped behind me, his head was right behind me, up above me. I said, "I think I might throw up." And he's like, open your shirt and throw up in your shirt, because if I threw up, it would literally get all over him. But I did that, but I didn't throw up. We got closer to the ground, and he said, "Lift your feet up, lift your feet up." So I did the best I could, but we landed, boom, boom. I was flat on my face in the ground, and he was right on top of me. And I was never so happy to taste Mother Earth in my mouth. I was so glad to hit the ground. And I keep track of it. It was November 15th, about 15 years ago. And I won't do that again unless it's life or death. But I'm grateful to say that I did jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Wow, that's awesome. You love nature. Tell us why you love being in nature, walking in nature.
I can't help it. They call me. The plants and the animals and the herbs, the flowers, the ground, everything calls me. I'm ancestrally, genetically, something about it just brings me to a place of homeostasis. It's a beautiful way for me to be sane, is to be anywhere near nature. And I always have a garden, and I love plants. I have a million house plants, and I know them all perfectly well and where they came from, and they all have beautiful spirits. And I make plant medicine, and I don't know. It's just naturally happens. It's nothing that I can explain. It's just a connection.
The deeper self speaking to the lower self through plants and nature.
Yeah, for sure. I get all my answers in nature. Don't you?
Oh, I sure do. The best therapy ever, you know?
Yes, it is.
Um,
Everything we need is out there, and everything we need to know is ready for us to find out.
for sure. If there's a message you would like to leave us with, what would it be?
Well, I believe in holistic living. I believe that we can empower ourselves to be our best selves. We don't have to be a part of the propaganda, be it the food industry or the air we breathe or the water that's not clean enough, the the governments that are not protecting us as they should. We are empowered to take care of ourselves and to be our best selves and to be healthy in ways that are beyond what healthcare tells us. And so I encourage everyone to be their very best, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And remember, it's a journey. There's no end point. We do it until we leave.
Wow. Do you like walking in nature, forests, beaches? Where's your favorite spot you like to allow spirit and communicate to you?
I love all of them. I think that it's especially poignant to stand on the beach because that's where water, air, and earth meet in such beautiful ways, sometimes pounding waves and sometimes gentle lapping waves. And I think that it's just a really beautiful vortex. But I also love the forest. I love the trees and the amazing network of information that's going on beneath our feet with mycelium and the cooperation of forest roots and trees and the birth and the rebirth over and over again. So it really doesn't matter. It just depends on where I am. I can pick it up. So I don't really have a favorite. I just love nature.
If anyone wants to find more or connect with Marilyn, where can they go?
Well, I have a couple free things to give away. First of all, if you want to know more about cannabis and you want a beginner's guide to medical cannabis, you can go to our website called plantsforlife.com. And Plants for Life, life is spelled with a Y, so it's PLANTSFORLYFE. And there should be the opportunity to get a free gift of medical cannabis beginner's guide. And also, if you are interested in the journey of the journey of caring for elderly loved ones, as I did, I've begun a little bit of a work in that direction, and I have a free gift there. You can go to freefrommaryland.com and receive a guide to, and this is a guide more to American healthcare system, but it's also generally speaking an ebook about getting ready for, then going through, and then the ending of how to care for elderly loved ones and be the caretaker. It's the caretaker's journey. And other than that, our new book, Why We Die, How to Live, is on the market. I'm grateful to anyone who would want to get that on Amazon, Why We Die, How to Live. And that is Beyond Pills and Procedures, Cannabis and Holistic Health. If you are interested in holistic living, I wrote this book and we just published it like last week. I wrote it with a holistic integrative medicine physician who's also a board certified OBGYN, Dr. Felicia Dawson, and my dear friend Oski, who is a Jamaican herbalist. And between the three of us, we wrote this amazing book about holistic living, including cannabis.
Marilyn, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a blast, educational, and fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, Aron. You rock.
So thank you so much for being on the show, and stay tuned for next week's episode, and rock on.
Thank you for listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show, where the world's best stories are told. If you like, please post a review or subscribe to the show. To find out more, contact us at aronodowd.com. That's ARONODOWD.com. We're always ready to share another magnificent tale from the world's best storytellers. So stay tuned and rock on.